Hey, everybody. Soon I'll get the hang of this delay. Let me just make sure I'm live here. All right, let's see. All right, we are officially live, it looks like. So I just want to make sure we're all right. We have a viewer. So if you're live, you can say hello. I'm just going to pop back on over to Zoom so that I can see myself, not not getting an echo, not doing all the things. All right, so how's everyone doing today? How's your week going? Give me some feedback in the comments. And for those of you who are returning or new people here, don't forget to hit subscribe. But I had made a comment on Facebook recently about homeschooling my 15-year-old, and I wanted to come on and share a little bit more about it. But also I was inspired because this morning my son and I were doing a devotional. And so I'm kind of going to lace some lessons in all of this. So first of all, what I believe personally and know to be true is that we are always learning. So being in the school of learning, just committing your life to learning for the rest of your life and being in what I call the school of empirical knowledge. I believe there's no better lessons on planet Earth other than what you're learning. So there's learned information and earned information. So the school of empirical knowledge is both, of course, but we're just going to go through some of this content here. I've got some resources that I'm going to share with you, but I'm going to lace through this whole sharing that I'm doing today some lessons for you as well, because it doesn't matter what age we are, we're always learning. I know I'm always learning. I'm always listening to YouTubes. There are certain people that I listen to all the time, always educating myself, reading books, expanding on my knowledge, going back and re-listening to things where you'll hear things that perhaps you didn't hear or read the first time. And then you may read them and they're sounding different to you, or they're coming across differently to you because you are different indeed. So this morning, my son and I started out with reading a devotional, which I read almost every morning, called Jesus Calling. And then when I travel, my dear friend Liz sends me a screenshot of the actual devotional, which is awesome. So the first thing that happened this morning, even though my son and I have been doing this for a while now, he says to me, "What is a devotional? I don't know what that means." And I said, "Oh, perfect." So every opportunity is a learning opportunity, which is so beautiful if you're willing to be open to learning. And so I said, well, why don't you go ahead and look it up? And so he looked it up, and I forget specifically what it, said, but it was like, devotion. Gosh, I should probably look it up for you guys. I didn't have that here for me right now, but it was like an enthusiasm for something, a commitment to something. I forget, there was another word that there were 3 words that he had when he looked it up. But you can look it up on your own and it'll be a learning experience for you too. I recommend using DuckDuckGo so that you get more pure results when looking things up, especially in a homeschool setting. So this morning I thought, wow, isn't this just a perfect devotional for him? So again, this is from the Jesus Calling devotional, and you just flip to the date. You can reuse it year after year. In fact, my friend Liz's is very well loved looking. Mine is more relatively brand new. So I'll read to you this, and then I'll tell you what I was teaching him, and then I'll go into sharing with you a little bit more about some of the homeschooling things that we do and the benefits. So it says, "I am above all things, your problems, your pain, and the swirling events in this ever-changing world. When you behold my face, you rise above circumstances and rest with me in heavenly realms. This is the way of peace, living in the light of my presence. I guarantee that you will always have problems in this life." Did you hear that part? You will always have problems in this life. "But they must not become your focus. When you feel yourself sinking in the sea of circumstances, say, 'Help me, Jesus,' and I will draw you back to me. If you have to say that thousands of times daily, don't be discouraged. I know your weakness and I will meet you in that very place." Now, in this particular devotional, they also at the end of each have recommended scriptures that they've pulled the devotional from. So then right on this one, we would go to Ephesians 2:6 or Matthew 14:28 through 32, which my son and I did as well. But the whole entire time, it's an opportunity for education, not just about book knowledge, but also about self-knowledge. And so one of the things that isn't really taught in our school systems that I personally think is a huge travesty is communication skills, emotional management, emotional intelligence skills, having an awareness about your body, how those emotions show up in your body, where are you feeling them, what do they feel like, and noticing and being in a place of self-observation versus judgment. Now, for those of you who know me very well, you know that I've been in the coaching industry for 12 years. I'm an intuitive and business success coach. And you might be thinking, wow, Rebecca, what the heck does this have anything to do with business, marketing, sales, converting clients, et cetera, et cetera? I'll be quite frank with you, it has absolutely everything to do with it. And I used to go with the Pareto effect assessment of statistics on this, where it was like the 80-20 rule, like 20% of the time it's about business logistics, and 80% of the time it's about how you're conducting yourself. What are your current life circumstances? How are you willing or able, and how skilled are you at managing them? And how skilled are you at leaving them at the door, doing the things that sometimes you don't want to do, and less about the business strategies and structures and systems, et cetera. I would almost go at this point, especially in the current climate that we're living and working in, to saying that might even be upwards of 90 to 95% of this is the work. So when you do this work, your business runs more easily. When I take time to sit in meditation or to read a devotional with my son, things that are enriching me, and I'm putting that first in my day goes completely differently. And a lot of people overlook that aspect of how that really does impact your business, whether you're an entrepreneur like myself or not. So here in the book, what I loved, number one is your problems are not, you're always going to have problems. So that was one of the first things that I said to Austin. The second thing is that they must not become your focus. They must not become your focus. And so what most people that I have talked to, and I have clients all over the globe, it doesn't matter where they are, everyone has been dealing with so many issues over the past year. They've been dealing with differing viewpoints on how to navigate through these times of uncertainty. Family ties have been severed. All kinds of very dramatic things are happening, not just on the macro, but on the micro. And I want you to remember that as well. So if you're going through something and you think, gosh, I'm the only person going through this. I was speaking with a friend about this last night and praying with her. And she was like, I just don't feel like I have that many people that I can talk to about this. And when we go through really dramatic circumstances, we tend to think that we're the only ones going through this, but that couldn't be further from the truth. So I want you to just remember, says it right here, you're guaranteed to have problems. It's how you handle them and what you prioritize. Are you prioritizing prayer? And so I wanted to share with you what Austin and I ended up talking about during this exchange that we had this morning, because I may just start live streaming live when we do this live, even though I'm still in my pajamas. But we turned to Matthew 14:28 through 32 is what the recommendation was. I read a little further than this. So for those of you who are familiar with this particular story in the Bible, it's when Jesus walks on water. And so, it comes after the story of where he turned the loaves and the fish into being able to feed like 5 or 10 or 15,000 people is what it says in the Bible here. So anyways, starting out where it recommends, if you want to read further and kind of anchor in that information, which is also something that I highly recommend when you're learning something, is to learn in multiple media formats. So one of the benefits to homeschooling is that you can identify how your child learns, because everyone learns differently. So for me, growing up, I learned, and still, I had major reading comprehension issues. I ended up with a tutor. I really struggled. And then growing up and being an avid learner and just having a voracious appetite for learning more and more and listening and talking books and so on. That's why you hear me say listening a lot, because that's how I take in information. I'm auditory, I'm visual, and I'm kinesthetic. And so, for example, if I call Apple and I've got an issue with my phone and they're like, oh, I'll send you this article. And I'm like, no, please don't. I will never read it. I need you to talk me through while I'm doing the thing. And then I've got it down pat. So really honing in and identifying what each person's individual learning style is. And that may change. It may be one way for one subject or one way for one period of time in their life. And it may be another way for a different period of time in their life. Or you may need to do, I would say, cross-sectioning, anchoring that information in. So for example, well, I'll give you an example actually right now. So in the morning, 10 pages a day, I highly recommend having your child read 10 pages a day of a personal development or professional development book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. There's all kinds of really cool books that you may have read as an adult and you didn't even know that they existed in the format for children that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, hundreds. Now, there's also a workbook here. So this is a self-guided workbook for the book. That is just going to reinforce the learning, whether you're listening to the talking book or you're actually reading the physical book. And, we're a fair amount of the way into the school year this year. And I even said to him the other day, are you still learning best through reading and holding the book and having the physical book? Or would you like the audiobook? Or would it be helpful for you to have the audiobook and the physical book and then follow along through listening to the audiobook? Because he has done that before as well. So just look at all the different formats, and then in each unique situation and each unique subject, identify which one is most optimized. That's what you're looking for, is the most optimized. And the most optimized when you're attending a school that's in a system is they're teaching you their most optimized way to manage volumes of people. In this particular case, you have the ability to customize things and optimize things based on your child's unique abilities, skills, etc., which is honestly more realistic for the world. And what's being taught in the school systems, in my personal opinion, is how to be lazy, how to think like we want you to think, how to be cooperative, how to do what you're told, not to be self-thinking, entrepreneurial. There's a book I read years ago for any of you who have had children that have been labeled as ADD or ADHD. The guy's name is Tom Hartman. It's THOMHARTMAN. And I was on a business trip, a flight out to Santa Barbara one year, and I'm reading this. I mean, I've learned more about me as an entrepreneur. So the concept behind it is that people are either hunters or farmers, and farmers are more methodical. You have to know which category you kind of fall into or have similar traits of. It's not to label people at all, but the hunter is kind of like checking things out at all times. Like, there's almost like this 360-degree scan of like, well, what's going on all around me? I hear sounds, I hear noises, I see things, I feel things, I sense things. I work very intuitively with all of my clients, and I feel their energy. I can feel when, they need to like fix their thinking about certain things if they're doing a launch, because that'll impact the success that they're going to have or not have. And so as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, wow, so the kids that are labeled, they have more tendencies towards being considered a hunter, which is like, I'm over here, and then I'm over here, and then I'm over there. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just how God wired that unique human being. That would be me. And those people are kind of like the ones that fit into more of the entrepreneurial space. Again, nothing is better than or worse than. In fact, that's what I teach in the coaching that I do with clients, is how to create your healthy business ecosystem. And for each person, that's different, because you as an entrepreneur have a unique operating system, and it's about identifying more clearly what that is and then intersecting it with how your systems and structures and you operate in your business to find what I call your success sweet spot. And that is having your healthy business ecosystem all working in harmony, just like any ecosystem working healthfully and harmoniously out in nature. Okay. So one of the things that Austin shared with me the other day is that he's stressed out. He has a lot of stress right now, and that's what's in his world. And so we'll just go with that, right? Because that's his truth. So that's why I felt like this devotional was really helpful. And then he was also able to have a little mini lesson on devotion, on the meaning of devotion. And then going in the Bible, I was teaching him, more about how is the Bible structured and how it's organized, and then the maps that are in here. So it's like a geography lesson and a history lesson. So just know that you can take pretty much anything that you're doing with your child and customize it and really teach them the things that they're not going to receive in school, that quite frankly are what help you to be an incredibly successful human being in the world at large. And again, this is one of the biggest benefits that I have found, is that you can take pretty much anything and turn it into a lesson, and then also help them to be more confident and more successful going out into the world, into the real world where these kinds of things matter. Another thing that we have done is journaling. So here's a journal that we picked up. I don't think he started this one, or he's only done a couple of things in here, because there's another journal that he got, but you can simply buy a blank page. The very first journaling exercise that he did was to write about something that he wanted to create and magnetize and manifest into his life. And so what he drew a picture, and then he wrote about it. So the picture that he drew was a picture of, I think it was a Honda Civic, that he was like, he's going to get his learner's permit soon, and he was thinking about cars. But that ended up being able to get turned into a math lesson, because it was like, well, how much money would you have to save up, and how much does this car cost? And then he was able to do research. And ultimately what you're teaching here is self-reliance and critical thinking skills as well, which you cannot go to the store and buy these things. I tell this to my client all the time. All my clients, I tell them, you cannot go to the store and buy resiliency. You cannot go to the store and buy confidence. These are the things that are earned. As I said at the beginning of this live training, there's earned and then there's learned. So, all right, back to, because I want to kind of teach you the lesson that I gave Austin this morning as well, because I think it's so poignant right now, especially with everything that's going on in the world on the macro, and in your own individual life, perhaps on the micro. So in the reference that they're giving here, it says, then Peter called to him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you by walking on water. All right, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he looked around at the high waves, this is the most important part. When he looked around at the high waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. Instantly, Jesus reached out his hand and grabbed him. You don't have much faith, Jesus said. Why did you doubt me? And when they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshiped him. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. So the thing I love about this Bible is, well, I've had it for years and years and years, but it's a study Bible. So at the bottom, it kind of goes into explaining things, and then they have the little maps. That's what I was referencing earlier about to be able to teach those kinds of things in the lesson as well. So that's the beautiful thing, is that when you're doing a teaching, it's like, oh, well, I didn't think that was going to be a teachable moment too, but there's all these teachable moments. It's really kind of cool. So down here, it says, Peter was not putting Jesus to the test, something we were told not to do. Instead, he was the only one in the boat to react in faith. His impulsive request led him to experience a rather unusual demonstration of God's power. Peter started to sink because he took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the high waves around him. I'm going to repeat that. Peter started to sink because he took his eyes off of Jesus and focused on the high waves around him. Now, this gave me an opportunity this morning to share that when you are focused on your worries, when you are focused on the high level of uncertainty that is certainly present in the world right now, then you're going to sink. And we could look at that in a couple of different ways, right? You're lowering your frequency, you're lowering your vibration, you're succumbing to gravity. You're not focused on the things that you can see. And this is where I was going with the teaching with him. I'm glad that came back to me, because I had forgotten about that. But focus more on that which you cannot see than on that which you can see. So in other words, the way that you grow your strength and your faith, and this is what I was teaching to him this morning, is that when you have these difficult times, and I believe we are given these difficult times on purpose, not to punish us, not to reward us, not to All of that stuff is an illusion. I have another live I'll be sharing about that, that I clipped from a client session earlier today. But that you would believe more in that which you cannot see. That is what's going to grow your faith. That is what's going to grow your strength. And that is what's going to grow your connection and your relationship with the divine. Always believing that there is a divine plan for you and greater than you can ever imagine and see. We are extremely powerful creators. And I talk a lot about magnetism versus manifestation. I believe that manifestation is a concept created by man, and that magnetism is a force in the universe that exists in all things. In fact, they have electromagnetic reading frequency devices for that particular reason. And this body temple is one of the greatest electromagnetic frequency devices ever created, quite frankly. And so we tend to magnetize things to us for our highest and best good. So if you have concerns, like he has shared with me, I'm stressed out, this is happening, or this is happening, there's a lot of things that aren't even real. And we're just buying into the illusion. We're judging things, we're criticizing things. Our minds are meaning-making machines. So we try to create meaning out of everything. And when there is uncertainty or space, we tend to create stories in those spaces. What frequency are your stories going to? So when your stories are going into the frequency of doubt, worry, and concern, that's when you're going to sink like Peter did. And then the waves will come up around you and it'll feel like they're encapsulating you, of course, too. But when you choose to, I teach to pray from the end. I learned that a long time ago from a beautiful spiritual teacher. Pray from the end. So it's like, thank you for my health, even though you may not feel fully healthy right now in this very moment, but you're praying from the outcome. So if you're visualizing, and we're in a very astrologically powerful time right now over the next 11, 12 weeks, where all planets are direct. And so if you just really devote yourself to spending time in visualization from the end, from the outcome, you might be very surprised at where you are in 12 weeks from now. So just remember to focus on that which you do desire instead of getting encapsulated by the waves, because you're only going to sink down further and diminish your opportunity to grow your faith and your strength and your resiliency and your confidence and your belief in yourself, which is really important. I hope you've enjoyed this live training, and I'm sending you all so much love. Until next time, Rebecca Satori. If you want to go get a free money meditation, you can go to RebeccaSatori.com/meditation. It's a miracle money mastery meditation.